Hi, I'm Jon Kirkman. I'm a broadcaster and music journalist based in the UK. So the hair's getting longer, a little bit whiter. Suppose I should get a haircut, really. No, there've always been some of my worst decisions getting haircuts. I feel a little bit like Samson in that sense. Today, 2 for 1. Focus and Jan Akkerman. Of course, Jan Akkerman, as everybody knows, was a founder member of Focus. Played with them until '76. There's been the odd reunion since, but not very often. They're still going as a band. In fact, they're currently on tour in the UK and celebrating their 50th anniversary, which was actually in 2020. But because of the pandemic and everything else, they do have a wonderful live album, filmed and recorded in South America. But this concentrates on the classic years, if you like, in the 70s with Jan Akkerman. So we'll start with this first then. Focus 50 years. Let's open up the box. So you get a wonderful booklet which has a great essay and lots of ephemera in there, you know, clips from papers and of course photographs. I mean, you cannot believe, really, looking back now, how amazingly successful this band was. They started as the pit band in the Dutch version of Hair, believe it or not. And yeah, it's an interesting start for a band. Now, there's the first album. Of course, I think there's a version of the original sleeve. No, there isn't. That's the Dutch sleeve. It's a different sleeve. It's called In and Out of Focus. It was called Focus 1 over in Holland and Europe. Now, here's an interesting thing. Focus 2. You think, well, I don't remember Focus 2. There it is. Well, actually, it appeared over here on the Blue Horizon label, and it was produced by Mike Vernon as Moving Waves. And I guess if you've heard a Focus album, it's probably this one, because this has got Hocus Pocus on it. It's got the wonderful Eruption on it, which features a wonderful piece called Tommy within it. And at the time, 72, Focus were big news. They were on the Old Grey Whistle test, and they basically issued a couple of singles, Hocus Pocus and basically Sylvia, which is appearing on this one, which was Focus 3. And at one point, Polydor Records were just pressing those singles. They were so popular. And both Hocus Pocus and Sylvia were both in the charts at the same time in 1973. Also in 1973, Jan Akkerman topped the guitar polls in the Melody Maker. He actually knocked Eric Clapton off the top slot. Can you believe that? He knocked God off the top slot. And he actually told me once, that was the easy bit. He said staying up there was very hard. But he's an amazing guitarist. And if you want a taste of what he was like live, there you go. And there's a nice surprise at the end of this box. That's Focus Live at the Rainbow, which was broadcast as a Whistle Test special as well and released as an album. Shortly after that, drummer Pierre van der Linden took leave of the band, and they brought in Colin Allen, formerly of Stone the Crows, to make this album. Now, Jan Akkerman loves this album, but he's really said he'd love to re-record it as a whole. And whether that happens or not, he's been saying it for years. But the Hamburger Concerto it's a beautiful album, and this did well in America as well. And I love this album. I must say, I do love this album. There was a single off this particular album called Harum Scarum, which didn't really do very much. It was kind of like, I suppose, in a similar vein to Hocus Pocus. Now, moving on to this. This was the final studio album that Jan Akkerman actually played on in the 70s with Focus. There's a bit of a joke in the title, Mother Focus. Yeah, I know, quite an easy one to follow that one. There's a great track on here that Jan still does occasionally in his set called No Hang-Ups. But this was it, really, in terms of Jan Akkerman and Focus. There were a couple of reunions in the 90s, but nothing particularly long-lasting. There was an album that came out after this. Now here's Ship of Memories. There's unreleased material on here and different mixes. For instance, there's the American mix of Hocus Pocus, and you think, well, why do I need an American mix? You do. It's completely different. It's almost unrecognisable as a mix. It's totally different. And it's a nice album to have, actually. You could say this was the album that came out of this, although it is archived material at the time. It had been previously recorded. A very, very nice album. Not a great cover, I have to say. But there they all are, in more friendly at times, because I don't think the split was particularly amicable. But while they were together, they made some wonderful music, and of course, all of them have gone on to make more music, both as solo artists and with Focus, as Thijs van Leer continues with Focus, and he's made solo albums too. Now, here's the nice surprises. Here we have sessions, BBC sessions from the 70s with Focus. That's one of them. Focus Live. Now, what you get on here, it's a DVD, and you get, actually, no, that isn't the DVD, that's the audio. This is the DVD. And on here, you get a lot of the whistle test stuff. Why could I open this out? And you also get Live at the Rainbow, and you get, I'm not sure whether it's an in-concert program from America, taken from the tour to promote the Hamburger Concerto. But again, another one. Let's be honest here, I love the guys in Focus, and Pierre van der Linden and Bert Reuter, and of course Cyril Havermans and Colin Allen were great additions to the band. But for most people, those two guys are the most important people in Focus. Now, I would love Jan Akkerman and Thijs van Leer to sort of bury the hatchet, as long as it wasn't in each other's head. I think they're okay these days, but it wasn't very amicable at all. But that's the way bands go, let's be honest. They did leave some wonderful material and music in their wake. And of course, Thijs still leads Focus, and they're an absolutely spot-on band these days. And they're still going out touring the world and still playing all those great hits and making new music as well. As is Jan Akkerman. Now this is wonderful. This is about 26 or 27 discs there. So look at that. And it's a real, look how thick that box is. Isn't that wonderful? Now in here, again, you get an absolutely wonderful booklet. Look at this. The portrait of the artist as a young man. He started in a band called Johnny and the Cellar Rockers, and there's some great photos in here, a lot of which I've never seen. And the albums go through his entire, major solo career. This is the archive one, Talent for Sale. You'll see lots of earlier songs on there from Jan. And that was the first solo album he ever did many, many years ago. It was put together after, of course, he became famous with Focus. This one, people will remember. This is the album Profile. This came out while he was with Focus. And again, it's an interesting album. It's got some of Jan's lute playing, because he's one of the very few guitarists who took to playing the lute. I know that Sting made an album of lute music as well. Now there's another one, Tabernacle, which, as the title suggests, because there's some lute playing on here too. I've seen Jan Akkerman playing acoustic gigs. I saw him in a wonderful concert at Birkenhead Priory by candlelight. Absolutely amazing album. But really, the first one following Focus was this one. Now, Kaz Lux. Kaz was the singer in a band called Brainbox, and Pierre van der Linden, who's also on this album, was the drummer in Brainbox, which is the band that Jan Akkerman was in prior to Focus. Eli, great record. And if you look on YouTube, you'll find some footage of Jan and the Kaz Lux band performing on the whistle test, and they're performing a track called Tranquilizer. And he's playing a twin neck guitar. And Jan told me in an interview many years ago, I literally picked up that guitar 2 minutes before we went on air. So he said, I said, well, you looked a little bit hesitant. And he said, I didn't know the guitar. He said, I literally just picked it up. And he said, not the best of situations. But I still think that performance of Tranquilizer is one of the best. It's a fabulous track, and it's on this album as well. Now, here's where Jan really started getting serious with his solo career. He was signed to Atlantic Records. Now, look at it. Isn't that a great cover? A wonderful bit of artwork that is. Yeah, what a great cover, or possibly a nightmare. Yeah, but a fabulous album as well. On here was almost a hit. It was a song called Crackers, And it was also a hit, and there's a lot of well-known musicians playing with him on this album. You see the credits and the songs here. And there you go. What a wonderful album this is. This did quite well, but not as well as it should have done. Now that studio album was followed up by this one, Jan Akkerman Live, and there's some wonderful material on here as well, both from the Jan Akkerman album and Jan's solo compositions, but also there's a version of Tommy on here as well. And in the band that Jan was playing at the time was a guy called Tom Balage. Now, Tom actually wrote the song Tommy. It was originally by his band, Solution, who were another Dutch band. And Tom's playing keyboards on here, but he actually wrote Tommy. And of course it was featured in the Eruption song cycle on the Moving Waves or Focus 2 album. But this is a fabulous live performance, and it just proves the point that Jan Akkerman is such a versatile guy. There's all sorts of music in Jan's solo canon, as it were. There's jazz, there's funk, there's rock, there's almost folk, there's some traditional classical music on the lute and things like that, and it's great. We worked through all these albums. These are, just wonderful albums that many of you may have missed because, of course, coming away from Focus, I mean, Jan was obviously a star within Focus, and this is another wonderful solo album, and this is one of my favourites, I must say, and this gets played a lot in Kirkman Towers, I'll tell you that. I've met Jan many times over the years, interviewed him so many times, and he's modest, but sometimes not very modest, but he's very confident, but he has got a very dry sense of humour. So when he's being a little immodest, it's sometimes just having a joke. This is another great album. Came out about 1980, this one. And it was Jan Akkerman 3. But I just think that it's a wonderful album. Again, beautiful band and some wonderful musicians in on playing these tracks here. Again, it's another great record from Jan Akkerman, and there's so many of them in here, believe me. Now, Oil in the Family, this is where Jan really started experimenting, really. There was a time in the 80s when he experimented with the synthesizer guitar. I think it was a Yamaha Synthax, as they called it, and he went through a phase of playing a lot of those older songs with that, and it kind of hit and miss, really, because it was new technology. Jimmy Page was another guitarist who played it. There were a few of them who dabbled with it. I would imagine for most of them, it's in their loft now or in their lockup, and they very rarely touch it. Again, we're going through the years here, the solo years. And Jan was, or Jan, as I should say, was very prolific. He made some great records through the years. Again, it's all quality stuff. And I'm reeling these albums out, maybe overlooking some of them, but that's another great record. It incorporates another one of Jan's, I keep saying, we say it Jan in this country, it's actually Jan. Another one of Jan's favourite passions, motorcycles. You talk for hours and hours on motorcycles. I remember seeing that lineup of the band, and they were really on fire. And again, that's another experimental side thing. Here's another great experimental album, which was recorded for Miles Copeland's No Speak label through the IRS, and there he is. And basically, he was also on the Guitar Speak. He was on the Guitar Speak tour as well, with people like Leslie West, Andy Powell. All sorts of people. Pete Haycock. They all made an album for the No Speak label, which is through IRS, Miles Copeland's label, and this was Jan's album. And it's again really good album, predominantly featuring guitar, of course. I'm going to move on to another one here, which I really like. Focus and Time. That's a great record. I remember when I first met him. I met him in the 70s with Focus, but not in a professional level. This is the first time I met Jan in a professional level when this album came out. And he played at the Guitar Festival, which took place every year on the Wirral where I live. And this album was out as well, a live album. And this is a great live album. You get the favourites, but some of them are, well, they're disguised in other titles. Hocus Pocus is not called Hocus Pocus here, and Sylvia is Sylvia's grandmother. There is a reason, but for legal reasons I'm not going to tell you. But again, a great example of Jan Akkerman live in the 90s. And we moved through these again. These are the more recent albums. And I think when this album came out, he also had a lot of stuff played on the radio with this particular album. There you go. And I think, again, very much a mixture of funk, rock, all sorts, a lot of different styles on that particular album. Now, here's the things that you're going to like. You get these archive albums. So that was another great final. That's the final album in the box of original material. Okay, here are the two at ones that people are going to really love. These are the archive albums. But I mean, the packaging throughout these boxes is absolutely superb, and there's lots of great material on these from Jan's archives. So if you're a Focus fan or a Jan Akkerman fan, you really should get both. They're actually very, very reasonably priced considering the amount of discs in these box sets. Focus were one of those great bands from Europe that did well all over the world. And Jan Akkerman was a very, very major part, certainly in the early days. When I say the early days, certainly the first decade of Focus. And as I said, there have been a couple of reunions since, but not anything that was long-lasting. And, you know, it kind of works that way. Focus is still going with Pierre van der Linden and Thijs van Leer. And Jan Akkerman is still playing all over the world, still playing Focus songs, still playing his original material. So it's a kind of win-win for everybody, really. But, we can mention Christmas because it's November, at long last. These box sets, as I said, both reasonably priced. And if you have a Focus fan or a Jan Akkerman fan or a guitarist fan, these box sets are certainly worthy of your attention. And for the Focus-loving and guitar-loving and Jan Akkerman-loving fan in your life, highly recommended. You could spend from Christmas probably through till Easter if you get both of these sets, just being totally immersed in them. And very worthwhile to do so as well.